Welcome to myviolinrecital.com. This is Diane Allen, and I am the creator of this website. This is a two-part series on the fingerboard geography, just kind of looking at the beginnings of mapping out the violin fingerboard. And what you're looking at is a handout or a sheet that you'll be able to download, and you'll find it on my blog. And there will be a way to download it. It'll be called Fingerboard Geography. This is the first part of our talk here is going to be about the piano. I think that it's really helpful to see how the notes are arranged on the piano as a visual reference for us violin players. And the second part, we'll talk about the actual violin fingerboard. So what I really like about the piano is that it's two-tiered and it's color-coded. So we have our musical alphabet down here, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Remember, we never go to H. We go right back to A. And then we have up here the black keys are called the sharps and the flats. And what the sharps and flats do is they alter our natural notes, higher or lower. So, for example, let's look at A here. And if we put in the music, if the music had a sharp sign in front of that A, you would bump that A up a little bit higher. And if they took the A away and they put a natural sign in front of it, it would bump back down to A, or what is also known as A natural. The B, if it were to have a flat in front of it, it would be lowered a little bit. And it would go to this note, B flat. And if that flat were taken away, that flat would go, it would go back to B natural, which is a little bit higher. So you've noticed that A sharp and B flat are the same note, and they do sound exactly the same, and it is the exact same piano key, but it's just two different ways to spell that sound. For example, there's 3 different ways to spell two. It always sounds like two, but you could spell it T-O, T-O-O, or T-W-O. It still sounds like two. So this key can be played or written, it could be written in music as an A sharp or a B flat. On the violin, we talk about half steps and whole steps all the time because that's how we make our way around the fingerboard. A half step is if you're touching your fingers next to each other, and a whole step would be if those two fingers have a little space in between. So we're going to look at half steps and whole steps on the piano keyboard for a minute here. So this is from here to here is a half step, from here to here is a half step, which would make here to here a whole step. So if we look over here, this black key to this white key is a half step, from here to here is a half step. So from here to here would then be a whole step. So the big question is, what do you do in this area when there's no black key at all? This whole system is designed to take an octave, which is from A to A. And the reason why they call it an octave is OCT stands for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the 8th note, we return back to the same letter, A. We are taking an octave and dividing it into 12 parts. And that's where we get our flat and sharp notes. And so the people who were designing our modern tuning system, where you take an octave and you divide it into 12 equal half steps, as a way to getting around that, they left out the note in between B to C and E to F. So it looks strange to not have a black key here and here. However, B to C, do you think it's going to be a half step or a whole step? It's going to end up being a half step. It's just the spelling is B to C. It's two natural notes next to each other. Whereas here, C to D was a whole step, D to E is a whole step, but E to F is going to be a half step. So it's just a little quirky in these two areas. And that's why I like looking at the piano to help us violinists figure that out in our heads, how this works on the violin. So B to C is a half step, C to C sharp is a half step, and B to C sharp will now be a whole step. E to F is a half step, F to F sharp is a half step, which is going to make E to F sharp a whole step. Let's go backwards in one of these. So C to B is a half step, B to B flat is a half step, and C to B flat is a whole step. So this is how we can use the piano keyboard for us violin players to get an understanding of the order of notes. One of the ways to remember that B to C, that these we have two exceptional spots, B to C and E to F are half steps, not whole steps, is that we call this big cookies and eat fudge. EF is eat fudge and BC is big cookies. So to summarize, when all the notes are natural, we're not using any of the sharps or flats, we're only using the naturals. They're all whole steps from each other, except B to C, big cookies, and eat fudge, E to F, they are half steps. When we play the violin, we don't have color coding or a two-tier system. What we have is, if someone were to stretch out these keys and the black keys could slip in between, they'd all be in a row. And that's what it's like to play the violin. They're just all lined up in a row. So it would go from here to here, 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 and so on. What we'll be doing is using the piano keyboard as a reference for us to figure out if the notes are half steps or whole steps. And in part 2, we'll be looking closely at how this all fits in first position on the violin fingerboard. Once again, you'll be able to download this on the blog under my name, Diane Allen. And as always, happy practicing.